Well, I know you've been very busy the last couple of years, as we just recently passed C-11 and C-18 in the House. So let's discuss a little bit what that actually means to Canadians. First, let's start off with a clip of C-11. You talking about and asking some questions in the House of Commons.
Lethbridge.
I would invite the member opposite to listen to Canadians. When they came to the House of Commons and when they came to the Senate, they said the same thing over and over and over again. Creators, content experts, and Canadians at large do not want this bill. It stifles their voice, it prevents Canadian culture from being furthered, and it likens us to places like North Korea and China. It's a terrible bill. It needs to be killed. Will the minister concede to Canadian voices, give them the power, and stop this terrible legislation?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, we have to give it to my colleague. She's very creative, which is very good in the cultural world. But if you listen to the people in the music sector, in the film industry, the music industry, they're all behind this.
Yes.
Why? Because it's asking streamers that make a lot of money. It's fine. We're happy for them. It's just asking the streamers and Netflix, this of this world, to contribute to the creation of more music from here, for more films, for more television. It's good for Canadians, not for the conservative. Good for Canadians.
All right, Rachel. So you guys have heard so many people, witnesses at committee. Would you just explain to the audience what exactly C-11 is and what some of the concerns are?
Sure. I think Bill C-11 can be quite complicated in some ways, but if I was to boil it down to its simplest form, really what it does is the Liberal government is trying to take the Broadcasting Act and apply it to the internet. So the Broadcasting Act was created in order to oversee radio and television, where you have a limited number of channels. And so in order to protect Canadian culture, in order to make sure that French language rights were upheld, the scarce resource, the channels on radio and the channels on TV, were divvied up. And it was, there were rules put in place in order to make sure that Canadians would be represented there, from various cultural traditions and, of course, the French language. The government now is trying to do the same thing to the internet. So basically, trying to make sure that certain content would be mandated online in order to make sure that Canadians have certain content that is forced in front of their eyeballs. So, for example, content that is put on social media, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, would be assessed based on how Canadian it is, and then either ranked up or ranked down in terms of its discoverability. In other words, if the government thinks it's Canadian enough, you'll be able to find it. But if the government doesn't like it, they don't think it's Canadian enough, it'll fall to page 453, and unfortunately, Canadians just won't be able to find it. Ultimately, it comes down to this. It's censorship. The government is basically dictating what Canadians can or cannot see or post online.
So what you talked about content creators now and some experts that came before committee. So what were their concerns about? Were they concerned about not being Canadian enough? I mean, so once again, how is that determined? And what were some of their major concerns?
Yeah, I mean, the main concerns that we heard, whether it was from legal experts, cultural experts, consumer experts, it was basically just that Canadians would have access to the things online that they most want to view. And at the end of the day, Canadian viewing habits have changed so much. We don't listen to the radio as much. We don't do cable television as much. Now we're turning to streaming platforms such as Netflix, such as Disney Plus, such as Crave, etc. And so basically, the concern is that the government is actually trying to enforce an antiquated system. The internet is infinite. If you want a page on the internet, if you want content on the internet, you can do that. It doesn't matter, what the color of your skin is, or what background you're from, or what ideas you're putting out there. In many ways, the internet is the great equalizer. It allows every single individual around this planet to have a space to take up their voice and make their ideas known, or put content out there for people to enjoy. And so for the government to treat the internet as if they need to regulate it and make sure that only certain content is there, it's absolutely unnecessary, and it just boils down to state intervention, or altogether it's censorship.